What is up? Welcome into the Early Edge College Football Week 2 live show. I am your host, Alan Bell. We're so glad to have you here. We're going to break down every single marquee game, best bets, picks, predictions, you name it, all across the board, and make sure that we get you ready for Week 2 so that we can all, as Coach says, take these straight to the pay window. So a couple notes. You guys know the rules here, what we want to do. If we get to 100 likes, we'll give out a free sub. If we get to 200 likes, we'll give out 2 free subs. If we get to 300 likes, we'll give out 5 free subs. For real. Like, how is it going to get better than that? 5 free subs. We want to hand them out. Make sure, smash that like button and join in the conversation. We want to hear what your picks are on these games. If you have questions, drop those in for our experts, and they'll certainly break those down. We'll put them right on the screen and get after it. So, without wasting any more time, let's bring in our experts here. My man, Chip Patterson. You know him, CBS Sports, the Cover 3 podcast. You also know him for going about 85% against the spread last week. My man, you crushed it, brother.
It was a good first week. That means it was great off season. That's all it means, because now the odds makers, the market, everyone's going to be adjusting, and so you got to stay ahead of it. So congratulations. It was a good off season, but that only counts for 1 week. So now we got to keep it moving.
I love it. You know, you're like that coach that you got a big game in week 1, so you've had all off season to prepare, and you did your job, right? I mean, you know, only half of them get the job done. So we got to give credit to you there. All right, our man, Tom Fornelli, you also know him, Cover 3 podcast, CBS Sports. Also, might I add, possibly the most hilarious college football Twitter account that there is. I'm telling you, I was loving it all Saturday. Dude, you have a unique way to break down games, but also it's hilarious. So I got to give you props on there, man. Welcome in.
Well, you know, what I lack in intelligence, I make up for with stupid jokes. So I appreciate you acknowledging that.
Well, I'll say that. You know what? That means that I'm probably, an applesauce brain dummy as well, if I love them. So let me just say that. And then finally, last but not least, our man, Micah Roberts. You know him from SportsLine. You know him all over the board. My man can break down any game at any time. He could go through 5 different sports in this show alone. Micah, it's good to have you back, buddy.
Hey, great to be here with you guys. Looking forward to hearing some winners. And Chip, I know he's hot, so I look forward to it. Week 2, let's go.
Yeah, I'm definitely writing down every single pick that Chip plays. You know what? And I'm just going to fade him. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. You got to jump on the other side, because it is a time-tested, true principle that if every number on the board is red, the next one's going to be black, right? That always works every single time.
The old coin flip theory. You're exactly right. The minute that I would fade you is when you'd go 100%, because that would be my luck. So let me just say that. All right, before we jump in, I want everyone to see what the Early Edge has coming to you live streams this week. Obviously, today you see the College Football Week 2 preview. Thursday, tomorrow night, before the Cowboys and Bucks game, we're going to go live 7 p.m. Eastern. Friday, NFL Week 1 favorite props at 2 p.m. Eastern. Sunday, we are going to have a kickoff show at noon Eastern. A Sunday night Bears-Rams preview game or preview show at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then Monday night for Ravens-Raiders, we are going to do the same. So not only will you have the Early Edge every morning, the same that you're used to in your feeds, but you're going to have these live shows as well. Excuse me. So that we could get everyone absolutely pristine on hitting these bets, because that's what it's all about. So we're going to do is jump into some of these games that might not be super popular on the board. Okay. I want to find some diamonds in the rough, some games that people aren't talking about. All right. We're going to start here. Tom, you've got a play on Air Force Navy. Break this down for us. What are you seeing here?
Oh, this is my bread and butter right here. This is what I'm known for. This is what I do. I target games between service academies, and then I just close my eyes and I bet the under, because that's typically how this one works out. This originally opened around 45 and a half. I know I got it at 45 and a half when it opened earlier this week. It's down to 41 in most places, and there's a reason for that. Since 2005, in games between service academies, the under is 38-9-1. And while the points are dropping and you want to get on it now before they continue dropping, as long as it's over 40, I feel pretty good about it, just because the theory is pretty solid and it's pretty self-explanatory. Service academies run option offenses. Option offenses run the ball. They don't really pass as much. And when you're running the ball, clock never stops ticking. So that therefore limits the amount of possessions that each team is going to have in a game. And when you put two of them on the same field, you typically see a lot of games between these teams where each team gets one possession per quarter. And unless they're scoring on every single possession, it's really hard for the total to climb in the games and to push and go over the total. So I love the under here. If I had children, I would be putting them through college strictly off betting unders in Service Academy games.
First off, that's hilarious. And second, I feel like you'd have to be in the Pentagon to have that kind of information, right? Like the nuggets that you just dropped. Dude, it's fantastic. All right, Chip, looking at you, man. You've got Oklahoma State. You got a strong play here, man. What are you seeing?
I'm out on Tulsa. And everything that we saw from losing to UC Davis suggests that preseason prognostication is right. I think we still have some value here. And even though Oklahoma State comes with some of its own concerns, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, something we're not used to with Mike Gundy teams, I just think they're really solid defensively. And I think that when I was looking at, what the plays that I liked were, how far I would play them out, Oklahoma State would play this all the way out to 17. I just really think that Tulsa is rated higher than they should be. This team lost not only just Zaven Collins, but tons of key players on the defensive side. And that defense is really what held this team together. I don't think Tulsa is a very good football team. And I think that right now they are still reflecting the success that they had from 2020, which was, I think, a little bit unique compared to the full Philip Montgomery spectrum.
Yeah, you mentioned Zaven Collins there, and it's interesting because it's like when it comes to handicapping teams, you'll see a lot of people assign point values to quarterbacks. I feel like Zaven Collins with Tulsa last year probably had his own quarterback rating just because that was the guy who made every single play on defense whenever Tulsa did it. Not just, tackles. I mean, forcing turnovers and then turning them into touchdowns right
and
away.
Touchdowns. So, he scored 2.
So losing him, I feel like Tulsa probably is 3 points worse without a linebacker, which is not something you see a whole lot of.
No, you don't. 3 points. Yeah, you don't see that at all. So you're rolling Oklahoma State minus 12.5, correct? That's the play here.
Yes,
yeah.
and would take it to 14 and would take it on the other side of 14 too.
I'll say this. You spoke last week very similarly in terms of you would take it even higher, right? The game that you spoke about was Kansas State, and it played out exactly like you guys had said. I mean, it was Stanford had no business being in that game. Kansas State had the big playability on that field. And you're right. I mean, what did it end up? 24-7? Was that the final score? Yeah, in a spread of 3.5. You nailed it. So I like that play from you. Now, Micah, here's my question, man. I'm here in Nashville. I'm here in SEC country. All right. I have no idea what to do with South Carolina. Okay. Yeah. First off, just as a whole. But this week, we had a really just interesting line. All right. They're at ECU. I think that South Carolina opens a favorite. It flips immediately. Right. And then we've got sports books, different books that didn't know what to do with it. I was watching Circa go one way. I was watching Caesars go another way. BetMGM was going one way. No one really knows what to do with this game. So you've got it. South Carolina +2. Tell us about it.
Yeah, the Circa Sports opened 11 a.m. on Sunday. They opened the proper line. I feel I had the same rating, South Carolina -3. You don't give too much home field advantage, even though Greensville is going to be very tough on Saturday. But this is a spot where Circa opens 3. You had a couple people come in, respected bettors, manipulate the line to try to manipulate the rest of the entire betting nation on this game. So Circa ran all the way to East Carolina 5. They opened 3-5. Then it got bet down from another group. So you got 2 different groups here. The main thing, obviously, is with the quarterback, was Zeb Noland. Started last week. He was assistant coach for the team, had a year of eligibility left from Iowa State. And they put him in. He throws 4 touchdowns. Now, the competition, not good. But now you have maybe the quarterback that was supposed to come, Doty. He's probably going to play. They were both listed as co-starters by Coach Beamer, his first year there. So bettors don't really know what to do. So I think you just got to go down the lineup and look at everything and just say East Carolina is not as good as this team, home or not. They just got routed by App State. They look absolutely horrendous there. So this is a spot that I think South Carolina will control, win by 10 points or more. I think the spread should be, like I said, 3.5 in this spot. I think they get the win. And if they don't, Beamer's going to have a tough time selling his short tenure so far in South Carolina. They're ready to go.
So does that mean, and I'm a little bit outside my water here, so I need some information.
Yeah.
Does that mean that was a head fake?
Well, that's what they're calling it now. We call it, back in the day, we called it smoke screens. And that would be something where Billy Walters would send two of his guys, and Billy Walters, like a really respected bettor in Las Vegas and the world for that matter. But he would come in, he'd send a couple of his guys on Monday morning when we first post the numbers. And you're like, oh, interesting. Billy's guys here. He's betting it this way. So you move it a half point to a point on each bet, maybe 1.5 point, depending on how high the spread is. And then later in the week, after the rest of the books had followed course and saying, okay, something's happening at the Stardust or at MGM Resorts or whatever book was at the time, something's happening, it's moving. Everybody air moves the number to where that book, respected book, started from. They don't have money on the side that's making, for instance, Circa getting to East Carolina -5, but everybody follows it and they say something's up, it's going on. And then a whole group comes out. So they spend maybe $25,000 to move it the way they did. I'm just using an example here for early week betting. As soon as the lines come out, maybe $5,000-$10,000 a pop. And then they can invest millions betting the other side coming back down. Now, I don't know that this is exactly what's happened. It's still only Wednesday, but the number did come back down from other groups. So it's something to watch for to see where it ends up here at the end. I think the side people were looking for that initially bet, just my thought, they were looking to move it for small money, $5,000-$10,000 a pop, waiting to get $20,000 a pop at everywhere in the world or the country that's booking this game here. So something to watch for the next couple of days, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the one thing that stands out to me about this, it's like just getting down to the principle of it. Like, I understand that South Carolina is not a team that has super high expectations in the SEC this year, but it's still an SEC team against a American Athletic Conference team that hasn't had a winning record since 2014.
Yes.
So for that team to be an underdog, it's like, okay, sure. I'll take those points gladly. Hand them to me.
Tom and I just started texting each other right away when we saw it. We're like, this is a typo, right? Like somebody just hit the wrong button. Yeah. I mean, what the heck is going on here?
Well, and that's what I was going to say, like to Micah, to your point of what you were just saying, like it moved that fast. Like the guys that, that were, looking to manipulate, like they had to have this game targeted, right? Yes. Or, they just saw it immediately. We're like, yep, that's the one, go. It was fascinating because legitimately, like you said, on Sunday, sitting there, I'm here in Central Time, is about 1:10, when these lines started coming out. And it was like watching it in real time. Just go. Yeah. It was fascinating.
Yeah, it is. And they moved quickly with it. So like I said, it was a couple of guys that they respected and they felt good enough. I mean, that's pretty significant to go to 3 to pick all the way to 5 the other way. That's a very significant move. But they weren't going to just do it off air. So I think it's a combination of being aggressive, moving it to where they thought they respected the guys. And then other respected guys came and bet it back down. So, yeah, we still got a few more days on this caper here. We'll see what happens.
I'll tell you what, I wish we could kind of relive like the pre-internet days in terms of sports betting. I could just listen to those stories all day long. That
was a blast. I was early 90s, let's say. The phones at the Stardust.
Where were you at? Yeah.
I started out at Circus and then got promoted up, went to Station Casinos and ran the sports books there for 13 years. But in the 90s at lunch, I would go to the Stardust and sit there, and there's like 20 phones all occupied, everybody on there just passing moves, what moved, what changed for illegal bookmakers all across the country. And, that was supposed to be for that, but that's what those phones basically were. They were set up for guys to tell the man down south or back east or Philadelphia, whatever, what the line was, what's moving, so that they could update theirs as well.
So you essentially lived the first 20 minutes of the movie Casino. That's fantastic.
I love that. I miss the mobsters. Vegas was so wonderful with them. You get the comps, you get everything that goes with it. Now, it's like they said at the end, they've changed everything. You post up $20,000, they want to see Social Security, and those are just federal rules. But it's a lot different now, and maybe not so much for the better.
I'll tell you what, we're going to have a live stream one day of just you telling stories. Like, I would legitimately be honored to host that and just let it rip, man.
Be
awesome.
Fun. Thank you.
All right, Tom, I'm going to jump over to you, man. You've got San Diego State plus 1.5 this weekend. What do you see out of that one?
More than anything, I just don't have a whole lot of faith in Arizona. I had very low expectations for the Wildcats coming into this season. Last week, they lose 24-16 to a BYU team that I don't think is bad, but it's a BYU team that was really good last year against a very soft schedule, who lost a top 3 quarterback in the NFL draft and a whole bunch of other key pieces. So I expected BYU to take kind of a significant step back this season, as they lost all that and they had to step up in competition. So to see BYU kind of just cruise a little bit in a win against Arizona does not give me a whole lot of faith, where I want to be taking the Wildcats as a favorite, especially against a San Diego State team that, unfortunately for me, because I was playing them in the first half last week against New Mexico State, got off to a slow start, but kind of figured things out as the game went along. I'm taking San Diego State in the points, but this is a game where I really like them on the money line as well. I do think they're going to win this one outright.
Yeah, huge offensive line as well, Tom. I'm a big fan of San Diego State moving forward. They should be favored, really. I mean, if you look at the schedule, pretty much in every game. And the first half kind of made people scratch their head a little bit on a rating, but they came back and performed well offensively in the second half. So that should continue as well. I'm going to be on that side as well, Tom.
Chip, throwing it to you. You got to play Georgia Southern plus 7. What do you got, buddy?
Are you trusting N'Kosi Perry and Willie Taggart? I mean, can I just introduce that Willie Taggart and N'Kosi Perry are favored by a touchdown? Like, Georgia Southern, they're not going to be a team that's competing for the Sun Belt title. They are not up there in that top echelon of a conference that has a very, very good top echelon. But I don't think they're a bottom of the conference team. I think that Georgia Southern probably gives up a little bit to Georgia State if I'm going to compare the two schools right there, the two rivals. But I think that this is a decent Georgia Southern team that is catching a touchdown of value in a spot where I really don't trust FAU. Like, N'Kosi Perry may have looked like the best quarterback on the field against Florida, but that says way more about the state of Emory Jones and Florida's offense right now than it does necessarily about N'Kosi Perry. So a little bit on a fade FAU spot where I think you've got some value on Georgia Southern.
All right, let me pause on that real quick. First, appreciate you on that. What do we do with Florida this week? It's not one of the games that we have listed. They're 28-point favorites. At FIU? Is that correct?
I think they were at a. God, I can't.
It's a Florida school, and look it up. Somebody look it up. But here's my question while we do. I know that they're a 28-point favorite, and I don't know what
South Florida. It's potentially one of the five worst teams, one of the 5 best worst teams, depending on what you think about the bottom 25. Shout out to Tom's bottom 25. Always read it on CBSSports.com. But South Florida, they may not be competing with New Mexico State and Bowling Green for the bottom 25 championship. But Tom, don't you think that South Florida will be at least in?
Oh, they're going to be there. They're going to be there all year.
Playoff.
They got shut out last week, and now I'm just trying to figure out, will they score this week, or are they going to have to wait until their game against Florida A&M to finally find points?
Yeah, and that's my question. Couple that with, I saw Dan Mullen throwing bombs with a minute left last week. I don't think that he cares whatsoever. So, we don't have to break down the game, but I just saw that number and it looked enticing, even though, you see a 28, that's a lot, especially for a team on the road. But yeah, it just kind of caught my attention. I'm just saying that.
I bet there are as many Gators as there are Bulls in Raymond James Stadium. That game.
Maybe
that's
more.
a good call. Yep, I bet you're right. All right, now, Micah, another one here.
Yeah.
So last week, Mississippi State, they survive barely, but it didn't look pretty, man. You're taking NC State this week in Starkville, -2. What do you see out of that game?
Well, first of all, I watched that game last week. South Florida, NC State just absolutely annihilated them and showed that they were just classes above South Florida here. But this is a spot, it's more, I'm looking big picture for NC State here, and I think they have seen what has happened already. North Carolina, Clemson dropping. This is the first time in forever that I can remember NC State in a situation to control their own destiny. They just have to win out, and they're going to go places and maybe championship. I don't know yet, but I liked what I seen out of them last week in somewhat of a practice game. Dominant defensively, did not miss tackles. They were very sharp game plan, and let up a little bit towards the end. So Mississippi State, this Mike Leach, every game seems like a disaster. I know they won 4 of their last 5 last season. They struggled to win Saturday. I mean, geez, 21 points in the fourth quarter to win by 1. I mean, it's a fantastic comeback, but that game should have not been as close as it was. And we've seen that routinely with Leach in these games with Mississippi State so far. So I think the crowd, the bell, everything is going to be rocking. That's worth, 4.5 points, but I still think that NC State deserves to be a little more favored here. So I don't care. I'll lay the cheap price and be happy with it.
Yeah, I think NC State is one of the more criminally underrated teams over the last few years by the general public, because you don't really think of NC State a lot, but they've been one of the better teams in the ACC for a while. They've taken advantage of like Louisville and Florida State having downturns, and they've been there. And then I think Mississippi State kind of in the general public market eyes kind of still lives off of the Dan Mullen Mississippi State teams, and they're not the same team anymore. Like I think people don't understand how good of a job Dan Mullen did there, because Mississippi State before Mullen showed up, very different program. And I think that we're kind of starting to downslide back towards where they were before Mullen.
Yeah, I don't have any faith in Mississippi State whatsoever. And it's nothing against Leach. It's nothing against the program. It's more of what you said. Dan Mullen did a hell of a job, and he should be commended, for the job that he did there. All right, Chip. We're going to go here. We're going to speed it up here a little bit. You got 2 plays here. You got Ball State, or I'm sorry, Tom, you've got Ball State plus 22.5. Yeah, my bad. I can't read. I told you applesauce brain earlier. Tom, you've got 2 plays here. Ball State plus 22.5, and you've got Cal plus 11.5. Break those 2 down for us, man.
The Ball State one is pretty simple, honestly. It's a situation with Penn State. Penn State is coming off a big road win against Wisconsin last week, which, is kind of coming off a bad season, was something they really needed to be able to go on the road and make a statement win and take down a team that was, a top 10 team and boost their standing. And next week, they've got a big home game. It's going to be a whiteout against Auburn. And here in the middle is little old Ball State, a team that has won a MAC title in recent years, has been one of the better teams in the MAC. And I just think we're going to catch Penn State in kind of that awkward spot where it's kind of coming off the high of last week's win while being against Auburn. And maybe they allow Ball State to stick in this game, or maybe if they get a lead in the second half, they find reasons to give some guys some time off, maybe give some young guys some snaps, and that allows Ball State to stay in. I think that as long as this is over 21, I like the Cardinal. Other one, it's Cal. I know they lost to Nevada last week, but I saw that coming because I think Nevada had a significant advantage because they've got the better quarterback in the matchup, and I think that hurts them. Going up against this TCU team, I'm not as high on TCU as like Chip and a lot of other people are coming into the season. I think they're being kind of overrated. And I think that this is a Cal team that defensively is going to be able to limit what TCU tries to do on offense. So I don't know if Cal's going to go on the road to Fort Worth and beat the Horned Frogs, but they're going to muddy this thing up. They're going to make it ugly, keep it low scoring. And I think that getting the points, that's what makes them attractive to me in this spot. So I'm going to take the 11.5.
You're getting 2 good numbers here. I mean, 22.5 and an 11.5. I'm with you. I mean, if you could get it over that 21 and over 10, especially with, 1.5 points to add. I mean, it's nice. It's really good. All right, Chip, you got Missouri plus 5 against the Kentucky Wildcats, my man. What are you seeing out of it?
Live dog. Chance Missouri can go and win that game. If you want to sprinkle the money line too, I don't hate that. But in a game that I think is 2 very fair and sort of evenly matched teams, I think you've got a lot of value going in there with Connor Bazelak, a year under his belt. Missouri needed its defense to step up against Central Michigan in an opener when the offense did not play well. And the Tigers defense did. I think that that's one of those good confidence building moments for Missouri. And that as they go to take a Kentucky team that is in the midst of an identity transition, Will Levis looked awesome, spreading the field. We haven't seen an aerial attack out of Kentucky quite like that in some time. And so, I give Missouri a decent chance to win, like kind of considered it a coin flip game. Thinking about sprinkling the money line, but if I can get 5 points of insurance, that covers me at a lot of different numbers in terms of the projected outcome score. So, yeah, I like Missouri a lot in this place. Good value play.
I like to think of the Hal Mummy air raid offense coming back to Lexington. That's what we need, baby. That's what we need. All right, Tom, I'm going to throw it back to you. You've got our two final plays here. You've got Oregon State minus 11, and you got Texas A&M minus 16.5. Hit those two for us, my man.
Oregon State lost last week on the road against Purdue. They're coming back against Hawaii. I just don't have much faith in Hawaii more than anything. I think Oregon State is a team that offensively can put up quite a bit of points, and I think that Hawaii's defense is always more than willing to allow you to put up those points. So it's one of those instances where I look at this matchup, and I don't see Hawaii being able to keep pace over 60 minutes. So I think there's some good value on the Beavers there. And the other one is it's another case of Colorado had a good season last year. I don't think Colorado was a good team. I think it was just in the right situation where the Pac-12 season itself was just completely upside down, and the Buffaloes happened to be the team that got the better end of the coin flip and took advantage of it and ran with it. Now at home against the Texas A&M team that was kind of slow out the gate at home against Kent State last week, going on the road, I just think that if you look up and down the depth chart of both of these teams, you're going to have a really difficult time trying to find the one spot where Colorado's better than Texas A&M. I don't think the Buffaloes, who are kind of one-dimensional on offense, are really going to be able to do anything against this Texas A&M defensive front. And I think the Aggies offense will have enough success that where it's, as long as it's under 17, I feel really, really comfortable with the Aggies.
See, I like games like that, kind of games that you just don't overthink, right? Like in the NFL, I think on Monday night between the Ravens and the Raiders, look, I know that there are some stats out there of home underdogs in primetime games. The fans are going to be in that stadium for the first time. The Ravens are better offensively. They're better defensively. They have the best kicker in the league, and they led the league in rushing the back-to-back years. Like just games like that where you just don't overthink it. Just take the better team, eat the points, and go. All right, so what we're going to do here, let's jump into the big games, man. This is what everybody's for. This is what it's all about, what we call our six-pack. We've got the 6 biggest games on the tap this weekend, and we're going to break each one of them down, and you guys give us your lean, your best play. It doesn't necessarily have to be, an official pick, and we'll post all those up, excuse me, at the end of the show so that everybody can see it and we can catch up there. But just where you lean, what you like, what you think, okay? So let's get started. First one, Iowa at Iowa State. Iowa State, 4.5-point favorite, total of 46. Chip, going to you first, buddy. What do you like?
Well, first of all, what we see here is something we've discussed before, which is that you could, at home, make a line for a Big Ten game. And an Iowa State-Iowa game is very much a Big Ten game because what happens? You give about a field goal to the home team and you set the total at 45. And then you go and adjust because pretty much every Big Ten conference game, it doesn't involve Ohio State, is 45 on the total and 3 to the home team. And Iowa State might as well be a Big Ten game. In this rivalry in particular, the under is 13-2 in the last 15 times that they've played against each other. I saw nothing from Brock Purdy, Breece Hall, and Iowa State's offense that gave me a lot of encouragement. Now, did Matt Campbell have the spring game offense in place for FCS Northern Iowa in advance of the rivalry game against Iowa? Sure. Still, I need to see some evidence with my eyes if I'm going to really be upgrading what I expect. Charlie Kolar was also out. That's your best passing threat, something that is both an indictment of where Iowa State's offense is from a personnel perspective, but also an explainer as to why that offense might not have been productive. I thought that Iowa defensively might have one of the best units in the entire country. I think Iowa State's defense is very good. Like everything is lining up. I mean, we're watching like Tyler Goodson run a lot of Wildcat as like a key piece of the Hawkeyes offense. I just see a lot of punting, see a lot of running the football. I see 2 very, very good defenses. One of them may be elite, and all that points me to go with the historical trends and take the under.
Man, I wish Coach were on the show to commend you on the promo you just cut. That was fantastic, dude. That was just great, man. That was great. You threw the nuggets in there. You had passion. It was fantastic. Mike, I'm going to throw it to you, man. Yeah. You're going Iowa State minus 4.5 here. How come?
Well, I made the game 5.5, so I think it's a little cheap for Iowa State, and I get the field goal thing, but the home team has covered the last 4 meetings. Rivalry, I love the running back at Iowa State. I'm expecting big things out of him. It's just one of those spots where a tough game last week. I think they rebound here and show everything that they have in their game plan, while Iowa kind of coasted against a team that was Indiana. I mean, I don't know what happened to them, but it was a huge win for them. So Not that they're going to be down for the in-state rivalry. I just think Iowa State's going to be better than we saw last week.
Man, Indiana and the coaching staff had to be pissed as soon as they saw those misspelled jerseys. Like, you're not winning the game. Like, it's just done, right? And Micah, what you were talking about in terms of the stories of the good old days, right? In terms of sports betting, someone got a hold of that information and said, look, I'm telling you, it's going to be in their heads. You're going to go the other way here. That's the way to do it. Tom, you're going Iowa plus 4.5. How come, buddy?
This is my numbers have this spread being about right. So it's hard to really find an edge for me on either side. So I'm just kind of relying on the fact that Matt Campbell has done a lot of awesome things at Iowa State as far as building this program up and getting it, taking it to places it hasn't been yet. But what Matt Campbell has not done yet is beat Iowa. Like, Iowa has won 5 straight in this series, and they've won 9 of the last 12. And if you go look at the 3 wins that Iowa State does have in the last 12 meetings, all 3 of them came by 3 points. So I think that this is kind of in line with what Chip's with his under. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game, and I think that this is a very intense rivalry. So in instances like that, I don't love either side, but if I'm getting more than a field goal and what I expect to be a closer game on either, no matter who ends up winning, I'm just kind of leaning towards the points because I feel safer with them than without them.
Yeah, well said. I like a rivalry that's between 2 different conferences, right? Like, I like it. Like, I feel like it adds even more hate because you kind of get that conference love, and respect on both sides. All right, let's jump into the next one here. Man, an old Southwest Conference here. Texas minus 6.5 at Arkansas with a total of 57. All right, Mike, I'm going to you first, buddy. You're going Longhorn, Steve Sarkisian, minus 6.5. How come?
Yeah, because of him. I mean, he's kind of changed the offense for the better. They looked good last week, and Louisiana is a terrific team. I was contemplating several times whether to play them or not in that game. I go, no, let's just see what he does. And he went out and he played amazing. His team was incredible. So this is a spot where I think, I said the game should probably be closer to 10. I think I have a little bit of value there. If I had to bet it, I did not bet it. I would take the Longhorns here.
Solid play. Tom, I'm going to throw it right back to you. You got Texas minus 6.5 as well.
Yeah, I think they're just the better team in this matchup. And one of the things, I noticed over the last few years, like with Tom Herman, when Tom Herman was at Ohio State and he had elite talent all over the place, he looked like an elite play caller. Tom Herman went to Houston, brought in a bunch of talent, and had more talent than most of the other teams in the American Athletic Conference. He looked like an elite play caller. He went to Texas, where he didn't have the elite talent compared to everybody he was playing, and his play calling kind of became a little suspect. Steve Sarkisian, for all the warts that he might have had in his past, at every single stop he's been at, I've never questioned his ability to coordinate an offense and call plays. It's what his bread and butter is. It's what he's great at. And I think that was the one thing that really stood out to me watching Texas last week against Louisiana. He was calling the right plays. He was putting his players in the right positions. And I think he's going to be doing the same thing against this Arkansas team, which I think had, was a surprise last year. It overplayed, I think, expectations, but I still think this is a program that Sam Pittman's got a lot of work left to put in to get them where they want to be, which is out of the cellar of the SEC West. And I don't think they're there yet. I think that honestly, this line's a little short. I think Texas is going to win by 10.
It's amazing. What you were talking about with Steve Sarkisian, kind of comparing him and Lane Kiffin, right? Like they've kind of been at the same stops. They've kind of done the same thing. Both USC head coaches, both OCs, under Nick Saban at Alabama. Both have had their issues, obviously different. But we see them now, and they're really taking, that opportunity, not only seriously, but they're just good at what they do, and they can make players better than what they are. So it's kind of fascinating to sit and watch those two guys, as they operate. All right, Chip, buddy, I thought we were going to go contrarian here. We're going across the board. Texas minus 6.5 for you as well. How come?
Somebody in the chat earlier asked me to repeat what the name of our podcast is. It is the Cover 3 podcast. And if we ever have a moment on the Locks Pod, which airs live, youtube.com/cover3 on Thursdays at 11 a.m., subscribe and tune in whenever you get it. If on the Locks Pod, one person is on someone, then a second joins the party. That becomes a lock agreement. And when there is a third, it becomes lock unity, in which case... And that's because I'm also on Texas, laying the points right here. Like, what was bad about Texas, Louisiana? I'm just going to tell you, like, right from my notepad, really solid win for Texas. Hudson Card checked boxes. The defense did a good job on third down in the first half, and my only complaints are penalties. Like, that is a really good first game for the Steve Sarkisian era. It's a good first game for Hudson Card. I think you expect that this is not going to be a letdown. This is just going to be a continuation of impressive performances. I like Tom's call. This could be a 10-point game.
All right, let me just say this. When I go into post-production here after the show, I'm absolutely clipping what you just did because that was phenomenal, dude. Like,
if you watch the Cover 3 podcast, this is like not an unfamiliar moment, sound or vision.
You absolutely earned that plug right there. You earned like 5 more plugs like throughout the show. That was incredible. You didn't even stop giving the take. Like, you were just hitting a boombox out of nowhere, man. That was fantastic, buddy. Well done, man. I'm telling you, you guys podcast, you guys show, it's fantastic. You guys are the best. You guys you make me laugh. That was incredible, dude. All right, so Washington at Michigan. I don't even know how we segue out of that. Washington at Michigan, okay? So we've got Washington, the ranked team here. Going into the big house, Michigan's a 6.5-point favorite, a total of 49. All right, Chip, I'm just going to throw it back to you because you're fire right now. You're going with the under 49 here, man.
And it goes against an old principle. Michigan home overs is something that I have enjoyed, especially against non-conference opponents. But Washington is not a typical non-conference opponent. And right now there are 2 things that I'm very much looking towards. Number one, Washington's got a very good defense. I rate them very highly. I respect that Washington defense. I think even on the road, they're going to cause some problems for Michigan's offense. And number 2, I am very concerned about the state of Washington's offense. So Washington unders very much might be a nice little spot that I dig into until Jimmy Lake gives me reason, because it started last year. You just looked at the pace of the offense and the way that the defense was, again, playing at a high level, got the defense rated very well. Washington unders were very good. And I think that might continue to be a play. So it's strange to go against my Michigan home overs principle, especially against a non-conference opponent, but that is the power and the respect that I'm giving to Washington Jimmy Lake unders right now.
All right, respect. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw it to Micah because he's got Washington plus 6.5 here. So tell us, man, talk to us about this respect level.
Well, it's just the number. I still have Washington, even though it decreased from last week. A horrible loss. Great win for Montana and Bobby Houck, who I missed him. I'm a UNLV guy. 2 wins a year I just felt so happy for him getting that big win. But the quarterback, Dylan Morris, I heard people talking about how short he was. He's the shortest quarterback starting for Washington in 35 years. I found that so funny. He throws 3 interceptions in that game, and that's basically they couldn't get anything going. So I don't know much about I got to go with my rating and stay with Washington there, but I'm not excited about them. But what I do have is under is 9-1 their last 10 games as a road underdog, and they're also only 1-8 against the spread in their last 9 as an underdog. So when they're supposed to lose, they lose. So I still have to trust my rating a little bit here. I may have to do some revamping on Washington after this game, but I do expect them to play well and give Michigan a tough game.
My favorite part is that when, we begin to produce this show, 2 days in advance, and we go through the list of the games that we're all going to break down, nobody sees each other's picks, right? Like you're just putting them in. And the reason I say it, Tom, you're going with the under 49 as well. Legitimately, all 3 of you have pretty much had the same general thought process on this game. And I say that positively. I like that. It feels like all 3 of you are kind of seeing the exact same thing. So, Tom, break it down for us, man. What do you got?
You ever seen somebody hand a baby to somebody who clearly wasn't comfortable holding a baby?
Yes.
That's what it looks like when Washington has the football. Like, they don't seem like a team that wants to be on offense. They feel like a team that would rather be on defense, keeping you from scoring than trying to score points themselves. And I think that was one of my concerns when Jimmy Lake took over this program. I knew he was coming in to replace Chris Peterson, and the hope was that he would be able to improve the talent level and be a more ardent recruiter. But as we see with a lot of defensive coordinators who become head coaches, they kind of bring that mentality of we can win games 17-10. Like, my defense is too good. We don't need to score a ton of points. And that's what scares me about this Washington team, is that I don't think they're trying to score points as much as they're just trying to keep the game low scoring. So that would concern me with them on the spread. But the other side, where I'm not that, I think Micah's numbers might be right, especially because Michigan's offense, it looked great last week against Western Michigan, but it lost Ronnie Bell to a season-ending injury. And Ronnie Bell was the guy that is the reliable deep threat. He's the guy that forces opposing defenses to defend vertically, not just kind of bunch the line of scrimmage. And without him, I think Washington's going to be able to keep some guys in the box, put pressure on Michigan's quarterbacks that they did not face any of last week, and that's part of the reason they all looked phenomenal. But we'll see how that looks against this Washington front, which can bring heat and can bring pressure, and a defensive secondary. One of Jimmy Lake's specialties ever since he's been a defensive coach is he hides and disguises things very well. Like, it's hard to read what Washington is in defensively before the snap. They hide it. So with two young quarterbacks on the Michigan side, I think that they're going to struggle more than they did last week against a more vanilla Western Michigan team. So I do think this is going to be kind of a low scoring, ugly game that, that this total kind of suggests.
So let me just go. First off, fantastic job. Second, now that for the rest of the season, whenever Washington's on, hashtag don't hand me the baby. Like, we're going to run with that all year long now. That was a great analogy, man. It was fantastic. It was sharp, man. It was spot on. All right, next game here. Now, this one really intrigues me, okay? We've got App State at Miami. Miami's an 8-point favorite, total of 53.5. Okay. What the hell do you do with the Miami Hurricanes after they weren't even in the game? They were in the, introduction ceremony, and then that was it, buddy. They could have just got on the plane and gone home. They were not a part of any part of that game whatsoever. So now they go home. They're 8-point favorites. Like I said, totals 53.5. All right, you know what, Tom? I'm going to throw it right back to you. You're going Miami -8. How come?
Because, like when an FCS team takes a paycheck to get its butt kicked by the Power 5 school, nobody judges with that FCS team how good they are based on the results of that game, because they were there to collect their money and get their butts kicked. Miami was playing Alabama last week to collect a check, take its beating, and move on. I take nothing away from that game. What happened in there was exactly what's supposed to happen to Miami, because while it might be one of the better teams in the ACC, the gap between it and the Alabamas of the world remains vast. So I come into this week thinking I'm going to try to take advantage of maybe some overreaction to that, of Miami looking so terrible against Alabama, because no disrespect to App State, but it's not like the Mountaineers looked phenomenal against East Carolina last week themselves. They struggled a bit. They did finish, they pulled away and won by 2 touchdowns. But I think going to Coral Gables for this game, with Miami kind of licking its wounds and looking to make a statement after having a terrible performance, I think that the Hurricanes are going to try to make a point on Saturday. This isn't a game that I love. This isn't a line that I love. This is more of a gut feel. I think Miami's going to try to put on a show, and I think that App State's defense, I don't have enough faith in it to really slow them down, or at least be able to limit what Miami likes to do. Whereas Alabama could make Miami one-dimensional. I'm not sure the Mountaineers can.
So I'm going to throw it to your boombox brother up there, Chip Patterson. He's going App State +8.
Yeah.
What do you see, buddy?
Yeah, it's the Tom plus Chip gut feel special brought to you by Tums. Tom versus Chip gut feel special brought to you by Tums. And in the Tom Tums Bowl, I'm going on the other side of it. Like, I'll tell you what, man, I've got it at 9. Like, my numbers say that this should be Miami -9. That means that if I'm just picking with my head and I'm going off the numbers, then I should get Miami. But I do think that my gut and my feels suggest that App State can go in and can win this game. I think that App State will make it a little bit difficult, and I think that there will be a moment when all of the college football world, it starts where a couple people start watching it, then you start talking on Twitter, and then all of a sudden you realize everyone's tuned into the same game, wondering if an outcome is going to happen. Miami losing to App State would be that kind of outcome because of App State's own history that everyone would get enthused by. People would be able to jump on board who are not just Miami or ACC or App State fans. So I've got all that value. I think App State can win. I enjoy it. Now, number 2, App State answered my biggest question about how I think about this team moving forward, and that is at the quarterback position with Chase Bryce, because everything that Chase Bryce showed me at Duke suggests that any team that he is starting for should not be trusted. He could not take care of the ball, interceptions, fumbles, you name it. It was concerning enough that it was like one of those things you almost label with a quarterback and carry with him for the rest of his career. I saw a pretty good performance. It was against ECU, and ECU's defense is not the most dangerous aspect of its team, but I do think that it was enough for me to upgrade whatever rating I had and erase some of the concern that I have for App State moving forward offensively. I thought Chase Bryce made me eat my words as I was fading Chase Bryce in the ECU App State game. So I hope it's not an overreaction, but I do think that App State could win this game. They will make it tough. And for that matter, I'll take the points.
Well, the bookmaker here, Micah Roberts, agrees with you. He's going App State +8 as well. How come?
Well, App State usually gets the money when they're an underdog. They've covered 6 of their last 7 when getting points, but that wasn't necessarily it. It was more what I saw last week. There's something about App State when they're an underdog playing a better team. They just get up. They get up for it. And I think Miami's in a spot here where they could actually think this is a walkthrough. Like, they just got beat by Alabama. It sounds ridiculous, but they could take this team not as serious as they should. And they should be favored by more. You mentioned 9. I mean, this game should probably be closer to 11 and a half, just based on the raising. I think they took a real hit off that Alabama lost last week. So also Miami, they have not covered their last 4 home games as well. So a few things in there, but I think the more polished team is Appalachian State, is at least execution wise.
Beautiful. Now, speaking of beautiful, going out west, Utah, 7-point favorite at BYU, total 48, low total, somewhat of a high spread, somewhat. Tom, you're going Utah -7. How come?
I kind of touched on it earlier in the show. I don't think BYU is very good this year. I think that it lost a lot. I think that it looked better last season than it actually was because it was playing a very weak schedule. And that's not something BYU typically does. BYU, as an independent, typically has to play a much more difficult schedule. And that's what we're seeing this year. And I think this is a Utah team that it's hard to find a weakness. Like, offensively, maybe they're not as explosive as you'd want a team to be if it's competing for a playoff berth or a national title, but they're efficient. Defensively, they're salty as always. They're very, they can limit opponents. They can beat you. They can stop the run. They can defend the pass. They can get after the QB. They can cause chaos. And on special teams, the Utes are typically one of the best teams in the country year in and year out as far as kicking and punting. So I look at them in this matchup, and I'm always kind of scared to be laying favorites this large in rivalries quite as intense as this one, because it's called the Holy War, and it's just about what you'd expect from a rivalry called the Holy War. But I do think that Utah is just the better team in this matchup, and I think that this year I like them laying the points. So that's the way I'm going. But this isn't a super high confidence pick for me.
Micah, you seem to feel the same way. You got Utah -7. Break it down.
Yeah, I'm not going to bet the game, but I was a little disappointed, as Tom was mentioning, with BYU last week. I watched a lot of the game. It was a very pro BYU crowd, and they scored twice early and then just kind of let down. They didn't execute. It was disappointing to see. I had come into that game last week feeling that, the quarterback departing for the NFL was a drop-off, but not one that was noticeable. And it was very noticeable, especially in the second half against Arizona, that the quarterback play is not where it should be. This is also a game, I believe, it sounds crazy to think, but has Utah won 9 straight meetings and covered the last 5 at BYU and Provo? I saw that and I was like, I don't recall it like that, but I think that's the truth. 9 straight wins.
That's pretty incredible, considering that BYU's been pretty good.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they've got a quarterback that's about to start game 1 for the New York Jets, here in about 4 days, right? So, Chip, throw it to you, man. You've got Utah -7 as well. A small lean for you. I don't know if you feel super, super confident here, but you tell me, man.
Yeah, no, the Utah's the right side. Whether or not they will cover 7, who knows, because it's a rivalry game that they didn't even get to play last year. I expect 2 years of pent-up rivalry aggression to all be released in this game. I think that, for that reason, I stay away. And it sounds like I'm echoing some of the same sentiments of both Tom and Micah. Not going to be an official play. Very interested to see how it turns out. I think it'll be one of the best performances BYU has all year. And for all the excitement we have about BYU, it also happened when they didn't have any of those they didn't have any Pac-12 opponents on their schedule, and they had to sub those out with some other non-conference opponents that were maybe a little bit less than power conference rating-wise. So, I think that it's possible that the numbers on BYU are a little bit off.
No, fair take. So we've reached the final game of this weekend of this show, the big one, Oregon at Ohio State. But before we do it, I want to have some fun just because, Chip, you brought out a boombox on the show, and it was phenomenal. I loved it. I think everyone loved it too. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give out a free SportsLine subscription for an entire year on me. I'll pay for it right now. All right. In the chat, all you have to do to win is write your Twitter handle and what you think that Chip is going to take on this game. And your options are this: Ohio State spread, Oregon spread, over, under. That's all you have to write. Twitter handle, one of those 4 options. Drop them in the chat. We'll have Chip go last, make his pick last. And whoever is one that chooses correctly, you're going to win a free year to SportsLine. So I think that's simple. I think it makes sense. Everybody drop those in the chat. Micah, I'm going to throw it to you first, buddy. Oregon at Ohio State. Ohio State, a 14.5-point favorite. Although we've seen line movement there. Yep. It's gone 13.5, 14, 14.5. It's bounced around. But we're just going to, for the show, use 14.5. Use a total of 63.5 for right now. Micah, you're going with Oregon to cover on the road. How come?
Well, first of all, I have the number at 9.5, 10. So that's one reason to think I'm getting some value there. I couldn't quite get the plus 14 to win for me last week. It landed right on the number. But I have some questions about CJ Stroud. And I think the numbers being inflated a little bit, like they have the same quarterback as last year. And that's not the case. There's some struggles against Minnesota where he just looked like a freshman. That's, a red shirt or not. I mean, he had some moments, great passes, great touch on the deep balls, but the intermediate stuff and below, I was a little concerned. And I think some of the Buckeye fans are a little concerned as well, but they're the ones that are going to be laying this number. I mean, it's the Coliseum at home. They're going to be running this number up. I mean, it's the Buckeyes. I mean, it's one of the most talented rosters in college football. So that's going to be the spot. Oregon on the road has been horrendous as a underdog. I think it's 1-9 their last 10 games against the spread as an underdog on the road. So something to think about. Little numbers overinflated a little bit. So I think that's the play. Oregon's running game to do really well against the Buckeyes.
I'm fascinated to see how Ohio State looks because in that game against Minnesota, I thought that they had a nice jump from the first half to the second half. Just offensively, I thought that they just looked better. And Minnesota's a good team, and it's brutal the injury that they had. That the kid's going to be out for the entire season. But I really did. I thought that Ohio State kind of got itself together nicely. So I'm interested to see what that looks like from week 1 to week 2. So Tom, I'm going to throw it to you. You got the under 63.5 here. How come you taking that?
I think Oregon is going to take a similar approach to what Minnesota tried to do against Ohio State last week. Like Minnesota only barely averaged 4 yards per carry against Ohio State, but they ran the ball 50 times. And the reason they did that was because they wanted to limit the amount of time Ohio State was able to, be on the field offensively, because as Micah was talking about, this is a very explosive offense and they can put points on you. So the only way to keep them from scoring is to not let them be on the field. And I think Oregon, if you look at them offensively with Anthony Brown at quarterback, they're probably going to be a better rushing team than a passing team as long as Anthony Brown is back there. So I think that's the way that they're going to attack it. And also, CJ Stroud did struggle last week. And I think that what changed in the second half was they threw shorter routes and got Chris Olave the ball, Travion Henderson, Garrett Wilson, and let them do things after the catch. I think Oregon's defense is better than Minnesota, and I don't think Chris Olave is going to be able to pick up 40 yards after the catch against Oregon like he was able to do consistently against Minnesota. So I think that will slow down the Ohio State offense a little bit. And I just think that, like I said, with Kayvon Thibodeau, his status is day-to-day. He's got a sprained ankle after getting hurt last week. I expect him to play. I think Justin Float, linebacker for the Ducks, is going to prove to be one of the best linebackers in the country and a name that many people are going to be familiar with. And I also think on the other side of the ball, this Ohio State defense, the one way you beat them that you can really hurt them is in their secondary. That's where they've been weak. Last year, it's where they kind of show some weakness this year. I don't think Oregon can really expose that. I think that Ohio State front seven is going to be able to do the same thing it did against Minnesota. So this is going to be a fewer possession game. It's going to be kind of like last week where, Ohio State got its points, but we're still going to stay under the total just because I don't think Oregon's going to be able to score enough.
Hey, on that under note, let me add this too. I made a correction from the stat I gave you on Oregon. As a road underdog, their last 11 games, 10 of them have stayed under. Not Oregon, not covering. 10 of them have stayed under. So that's the stat.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, we've reached that point. Chip, I'm going to let you announce it.
Well,
okay.
Somebody got it.
Well, yeah. We've got correct answers in the chat, and I'm going to pick the winner here and put them on screen here in a second. Okay. But like we said, you have 4 options: Ohio State spread, Oregon spread, over, under. Which one do you got?
Over. Let's go. Lock fight. I'm telling you, and I've been saying it for about 10 days, Ohio State gets off the bus and scores 40 points. Did Ohio State get off the bus? Oh, yes, they did. They did get off the bus. All right, they've scored 40 points. And I respect Oregon's offense to be able to get us the rest of the way. Ohio State over, right there for us in week 1, and I think it is there for the taking here in week 2. The Ohio State offense is just too talented on the perimeter. Eventually, one of those crossing routes is going to get hit in time. I have concerns about CJ Stroud too. But eventually, he's going to hit Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave in stride on a crossing route, and it's going to turn into a 60-yard touchdown. Like, if Travion Henderson is left with any open space, it's a touchdown. That explosive firepower on the perimeter and at the skill positions is such that I'm going to go into every single matchup assuming that Ohio State's going to score 40.
Dude, you guys just make me smile. Chip, you especially make me smile. And let me say this. I think that our man, and I'm going to put him in here, right here on the screen. This is our winner. Congratulations to you. I think our man, Kyle Wright, pays attention to the Cover 3 podcast, or just your picks in general, which is smart. I do as well, because I'm not sure if I finished the sentence and my man was like, over, right? Like dude, no doubt. Just went. He looked like Coach cutting a promo against The Rock, right? I mean, just went right at it. So, Kyle Wright, congratulations. You are a winner. I'll reach out to you on Twitter after the show at BankinMan13, and I'll get you all hooked up. But, fellas, I cannot thank you enough. That is the end of our show. It's all the time that we have. We could sit here for 6 hours and break these games down. I cannot thank you guys enough for doing this. I look forward to it next week, but I definitely want to give you a moment to plug the work that you have going this week. If you've got some articles, if you got a podcast coming up, Micah, you've got, I think, 90% of our entire SportsLine website in content. What do you got coming up this week, man? What should everybody be paying attention to?
Well, I just did the NASCAR race, Richmond, second race of the playoffs there. Denny Hamlin won last week. Probably going to win again this week. Shop around for the best odds available.
I love reading your NASCAR articles, honestly, for the last 2 years, because I'm not that educated in the sport. My buddy Trent Wade is, and I go to him a lot for that information. And me and him literally look at your information like every single Sunday, man. So that's fantastic. Yeah, Tom, what about you, buddy? What do you got going on this week?
Well, we've got the Cover 3 Locks pod coming out on Thursday. We'll be live at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find that at our Cover 3 YouTube channel. And you can also, if you want to follow me on Twitter at Tom Fernelli, you can find the link there to subscribe to my newsletter that comes out every afternoon with my favorite picks for the evening.
That is beautiful. We do need to sign up for that. Chip?
Cover 3 podcast goes live 3 times a week. Obviously, all the viewers now love the live product, so you can catch us 11 a.m. on Thursdays with our Locks episode. after the last big game on Saturday nights, we go live. Be sure to follow us on Twitter individually, and you'll be able to get the promotion there. And then we are also live every Monday at 3 p.m.
Man, that was perfect. Now, before we go, I want to make sure that we go over these picks of everything that everyone has officially on the board, because I know we just went through an hour, right? And we just went through them. So, Tom, you're on Air Force Navy under 41, San Diego State plus 1.5, Ball State plus 22.5, Cal plus 11.5, Oregon State minus 11, Texas A&M minus 16.5. Micah, you are on South Carolina plus 2, NC State minus 2. Chip, you've got Iowa State under 46, Texas minus 6.5, Appalachian State plus 8, Oregon, Ohio State over 63.5, Oklahoma State minus 12.5, Georgia Southern plus 7, Missouri plus 5 against Kentucky. So, again, that is all the time that we have. Fellas, I could not thank you enough for joining us. You guys' knowledge is phenomenal. I know everyone in the chat feels the same way I do. You guys are just perfect, man. You break it down in just such a great way. You had a great week 1. I know you're going to crush it here again in week 2. And look forward to next week in week 3 so we can do this again. So thank you guys so much. Everyone that tuned in, thank you as well. And absolutely. And as the coach says, man, let's take all these tickets straight to the pay window. I can't deliver it the way he does. I don't think anyone can. But you know what? Money talks the same way. So thank you so much. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Do you want best bets in your feed every single day? All you have to do is hit that subscribe button to stay